Mohammed,
Yes.
just one minute. Yeah, okay, go ahead, go ahead.
Okay, the recording, make sure,
Hmm.
yeah, get
Hmm.
started. Okay, let me share my
Yes.
screen. Okay, I hope my screen is visible and I'm audible loud and clear, right? So please let me know
Yes,
if
yes, you
there
are
is any
audible.
break in the voice. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so let me share the screen. Okay, great. And first of all, thank you to the team for the opportunity. So I think let me quickly talk about few assumptions before we dive into the topic and what we're trying to cover in the session. But definitely this is not going to be a deck presentation. So few slides and then I'm done with the slides. And then we are going to jump onto the fabric and see how it actually works and how you can set up one. Okay, so that's what we are going to do. So mostly we focus on applied learning. So we will see directly in the feature in action in Fabric. Okay, so I think welcome everyone. So what we are trying to discuss in this specific session is workspace outbound access protection. So maybe I assume people who are joining here have some bit of a background into Fabric, probably the foundations, because I think what we're trying to cover here is a bit advanced, I would say, with respect to the network security. So I hope you have some kind of a basic knowledge around networking area. I assume that so that you will get some kind of understanding, and then there are some takeaways from this session. Okay, so I think the key takeaways from this session, I will also talk about it. So what you will walk away with, and I appreciate your time as well because it's on a weekend. I think I really appreciate your time, listening to me for a one hour. So I'll make sure, and I promise this session is going to be very impactful. Okay, so I think when you talk about the network security, especially in Fabric, right? So I think we have two perspectives, right? So one, the inbound security as well as the outbound security, right? So what we are trying to focus, the scope of the session is going to be around workspace, outbound security, right? So how you can answer questions like, let's say, how I can protect my artifacts within the Fabric workspace, from exfiltrating to internet to public internet, right? Because I think when you work on any enterprise project, if you're picking up Fabric, I think security plays a crucial role, and Microsoft is investing heavily, as you all know, into security aspect. Be it any product, security comes first. And that's why we chose this particular topic for you to gain some understanding on how we can prevent your workspace items from exposing to public internet. So that's very critical, right? So if you talk about security, so because without that, the project no is not complete, I would say, right? So let's get started. So probably I think I will give you a quick agenda of what we're trying to cover here. So okay, it is going to be, we will look at the prerequisites, some considerations. So I think until September end, the feature was in preview, and now I think a week back it's in general availability. Okay, the OAP, outbound access protection. So which is good because but I still see few preview bugs, not preview bugs. Now it's a GA, but still I can see a bug. I can show you that as well. Okay, so I'm hearing a louder noise in the background. Can you please guys go on a mute? Okay, thank you. So we will talk about limitations, prerequisites, and what are the, I think, prerequisites, which is very important for you to enable this feature. So we are going to talk about the considerations, limitations, and then dive into demo as well. Okay. So a bit about me. I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. Okay, so I have close to 15 plus years of overall industry experience into IT. And I've recently started my own venture, which is Data Vion Academy, and I've already trained close to 500 plus students across India and other geographies as well. And my core focus and expertise lies around Fabric, Azure, data engineering, Power BI, and then real-time data modeling. And I think my mission is to help you guys to become more confident and try and see how I can help you to bridge the gap between theoretical knowledge and the practical application. Okay, the core focus is on applied learning. Okay, that's a bit about me. So let's quickly talk about a problem statement, right? So why we need to secure our workspace. So what's at stake, right? So that we will talk about, and then the solution, and then we will jump on to demo. Okay, by looking at the architecture, and then we'll jump on to demo. I think as I already mentioned, so enterprises, if you take any enterprise, if they are kind of trying to build their solution using Microsoft Fabric, they will need a they need to ensure there is a strict control, right, of outbound traffic that is going out of Fabric workspace. So you might have a number of items within your workspace once your solution is built. And I think it needs to be a part of the design itself. Okay, so at the time of, because you cannot build your entire workspace and bring in all of the items and then decide, okay, whether it needs to be protected or not. That's not the case, right? So whenever you're working on at the architectural design phase, you need to make those decisions to see how you can protect your workspace from exposing to public internet. So that's the core problem statement that we're looking at here. And I think Microsoft recently introduced these features, because for the last 3-4 months it was in preview, and now it is in GA, okay, general availability. Okay, because I think there were a lot of concerns around security came in Fabric, and then they had to heavily invest in the security aspect, especially around the network security. Okay, so I think if you see, I hope you guys have already tried Fabric trial and stuff like that, and I think by default, whatever you're creating within your Fabric workspace, it is exposed to public internet. It can connect to external endpoints, right? So there is no restriction as such at the moment. That's by default. So you need to make sure you have those controls in place to protect your data within your Fabric workspace. Because why we need this? When you ask why, this creates the compliance, because that's the basic need, right? So if you take any enterprises, they wanted to protect their data and make sure it is not exposed, right? So otherwise, there is a risk of data leakage and security risks in regulated environments, right? Uh, so you have to make sure you put the tighter security controls in place. So that's our problem statement, right? And I think it is not in preview anymore at the time of this session. Okay, so it's last week it's in GA, but still there are limitations which we need to make sure we are well aware about it before you even implement this. Okay, so what's our solution? What's Microsoft's solution to this, right? So workspace outbound access protection. I think when you talk about network security, there are a couple of perspectives, right? One, inbound security, where you protect, the security aspect that is on the inbound side, right? But I think for the scope of this session, we are going to cover the outbound security, right? So which is like whenever you're making connections from within your workspace to external data sources, right? So you need to make sure it travels through the secure network, okay, without any unsecured connections from your Fabric workspace. And I think in another opportunity, probably we can discuss or deep dive into the inbound security part. Okay, so uh, to prevent any external threats from your Fabric workspace, right? So those are the two aspects, and I think why we are doing this, because we need to restrict the outbound traffic to approved destinations only. So I'll show you exactly how you can set up those endpoints. I think there is a lot to cover in the demo, so we will jump onto it. Okay, so that improves the security posture as well by blocking unwanted and accidental data leakage of flows, okay, to the public internet. So I think organizations have policies defined to align with the corporate network and compliance requirements as well. So we will, as I mentioned, we will cover the requirements to see how we can enable this feature, current considerations, any limitations, and then an applied scenario with the architectural diagram for the enterprise rollout. So tomorrow, I promise, I think when you walk away from the session, there will be a takeaway, so that when you are trying to implement this feature for any enterprise customer, you should be ready to go. Okay, so let me take you through this particular architectural diagram. This is from Microsoft documentation. I think we will also provide you the reference links. Probably Inturi will help with the links. I think you need to do a lot of reading after the session also, because that's a very good documentation. Generally, Microsoft put good documentation out there, and it's up to us to go and read through and make sure we are aware of all the considerations, limitations, and stuff like that. Okay, so workspace level outbound access from the perspective of end customer. So imagine you have a Fabric tenant, and imagine you have three different workspaces. Just imagine you have workspace A, B, and C. And I think, let's say there is a requirement for you to connect to external sources in cloud. Probably in Azure, you wanted to connect to SQL database, or you wanted to connect to, let's say, ADLS Gen2 to kind of bring some data from there. That could be some requirement, right? So for you to connect to external data sources, right? So for you to bring the data into one lake, and I hope most of you are already aware about the concept of one lake and all. So we're not going to dive deep into what one lake and all. much in this session. Okay, but so imagine these are the three workspaces you have, and let's say you wanted to block the public internet access for workspace A and B, and I think you still have public access to workspace C. Okay, so imagine that way. And now the requirement is I need to have a secure connection, let's say to my Azure SQL database. And for that, what we are going to do is we will be creating managed private endpoints. So I think the key term for you to understand here is when we say managed private endpoint. So why we say managed private endpoint, right? Because when you create a managed private endpoint, you no need to worry about or take that headache of maintaining that virtual network, right? So in Azure. So Microsoft in the backend, they will spin up a virtual network for you and everything will be done for you. You no need to worry about any network setup in the backend. So that's why we call it as managed private endpoint, right? So all you need to do is you need to have the resource ID for any resource that you have, and then create that managed private endpoint. And then there is a process. Once you create the managed private endpoint, you need to go to the respective source, let's say Azure SQL database, to try and approve that connection, right? Because you cannot simply create any connection, any managed private endpoint in your workspace, connecting to it won't work that way. So whenever you're creating any endpoint, private endpoints, managed private endpoints, you need to approve that connection in your source, actual source by the admin. And that's how it works. And then the connection will be established to securely connect to that external source. And similarly, in Workspace B, imagine you are creating a managed private endpoint that you're connecting to ADLS Gen2. And there are a couple of scenarios we are going to talk about. Okay. So one, as I told you, there is a requirement to, let's say, connect to external data sources, right? And there is another requirement. What is that another scenario? So let's imagine you have a probably lake house in workspace C, and that is exposed to public internet. Okay. But what I need in workspace B is I need to securely access the data which is available in workspace C. So you can probably create a shortcut, right? So shortcut to any particular tables probably been available in workspace C. Or if you're creating a notebook in workspace B, you probably need to bring in the lake house that is available in workspace C. I think there are a lot of opportunities, right? So I'm talking about cross workspace communication here. Okay. So for us to establish that kind of see, imagine this is blocked, the public internet access is blocked here it is not blocked. So now what we need to do, if I need to do a cross workspace communication, that's a separate path. You need to have a private link service. So that's a separate Azure service that is available, which is basically in layman terms, if you think about private link service, it creates a secure connection on the Microsoft backbone network. Okay, so the traffic flows entirely through the Microsoft network. Okay, so it won't be exposed to any internet, public internet. So I'm going to show you that how you can create one as well. Okay, so and you need to be very careful when you are establishing the cross workspace communication. The private link has to be created for target workspace, not for the source workspace. You have to be very clear, because I think at the time of testing myself, I initially created for workspace B, and then I realized, oh no, I have to create it for workspace C. Because why we need to create for workspace C? Because this is already blocked, right? So for public internet, right? So this is already there. So there is some content or data that is available in workspace C, which we need to uh, kind of access within workspace B, and we need to have a secure connection to workspace C. So private link, I needed the private link for workspace C, and then I create a managed private endpoint to establish that connection to the workspace C. And that's how it works, okay, for the cross workspace communication. I think those are the two scenarios you need to understand. So if you think about outbound access in your workspace in Fabric, how I can connect to external sources. How do I do that? That's the first scenario. Second scenario, how do I establish cross workspace communication through private link for the target workspace? How do I do that? Okay, but you don't need to worry, since this workspace is exposed to public internet, we are still connecting securely to this workspace, right? So there is no problem at all. Okay, so still it is going to be through the private link to this workspace and pull the data. Okay, so even this workspace is connected to public internet, there is no worry because the entire connection is going to be secure. Okay, so those are the two different scenarios I wanted to highlight from architectural point of view before we jump onto the demo. Okay, so I hope many of you might have questions, so please reserve it toward the end. Okay, so probably once you get to the demo, you will get a lot of understanding. Okay, so what I explained here, the couple of scenarios. Then I think we will take Q&A towards the end of the session. Okay, fine, great. So let me just move on. I think we will move on to demo. Okay, so let me just navigate to. So if you need to learn more about private link, we will also share the links for the private link. But what you need to keep in mind is it is to secure your traffic, and it is totally through the Microsoft backbone network. Okay, so that's what you need to know. Okay, so I'm in my Fabric portal. So before I dive into the actual implementation, so let me hide this. So I wanted to quickly show you the supported item types and the consideration limitations. So I'm in Microsoft documentation because you need to be aware of what you can create when you block the workspace from public internet, right? So I think currently there are these item types that you can create once you enable that setting to block the public access. You can create one-click shortcuts, you can create lake houses, notebooks, Spark job definitions, environments, and warehouses. Apart from that, you can't create any item once you secure your workspace when you enable and say block the public internet access. Okay, only these are the item types at the moment. Maybe I think Microsoft may consider to expand this list in the future, right? But at the moment, at the time of this session recording, these are the supported item types that you need to keep in mind. Okay, and also a few considerations that you need to keep in mind. So imagine you have a workspace that you created unsupported item types in your workspace, right? So you have a workspace and you're doing that. And then if you're trying to enable the block public access, it won't work because you already have unsupported item types within your workspace, right? So those are the considerations Microsoft highlighted here. So I would encourage you to read probably later also, but I'll cover a few. So you can say it isn't supported for existing workspaces that already contain a semantic model, and it's also available in specific regions where Fabric data engineering workloads are supported. And the key thing to remember when you are trying to enable this feature using Fabric trial, it won't work. The first key prerequisite is you need to be attached to a Fabric capacity. Okay, so that's what Microsoft mentioned here. Only Fabric SKUs are supported. Okay, so workspace is hosted on a particular SKU. Okay, so I think this is the point I wanted to highlight. If the workspace contains any unsupported artifacts, so that's why I'm saying you at the time of workspace creation, you need to plan. Otherwise, once you have created all the items, and then if you're thinking, okay, let me go ahead and block the public internet access, it won't work that way, right? So you might have already built your solution with unsupported artifacts, and I think then you will not be able to enable this feature. So you have to be very careful. So that's why I kept iterating. You need to plan well in advance if you need to enable this feature and protect your workspace, okay, at the time of workspace creation itself. And I think few other things which I will leave it to you. Okay, so just go through it. So there's a lot of things to cover with respect to considerations and limitations. But the key thing which you need to remember are a couple of things that I told you. But you also need to go through other considerations at the moment. Maybe Microsoft will lift some of the limitations quickly, right? So that's what they're highlighting here. But you can still add probably, once you have it enabled, if you're not able to add any item which you wanted to create, you have to disable it and then create it. Okay, so you can add but again, it doesn't make sense, right? So if you disable it and then create any unsupported artifact, you cannot enable it again. So it doesn't make any sense. So you have to make sure and be aware what are the supported item types when you're planning this feature to be enabled, and how do you do that. So that's why I'm stressing on the supported item types here. Okay, good. So, and then the second thing is, okay, let me just quickly navigate to Fabric. I'm going to quickly show you few prerequisites that you need to meet, right? So the first prerequisite, so now let's kickstart the demo. So I'm in my Azure portal. So I have my own subscription. So I've created a capacity, which is a paid capacity, F2 capacity. So you can see here it is in active mode and I have a F2 capacity. You can always scale it as you want. And you can also look at the estimated cost per month, which is very, very expensive, because people are working on trial and I used to tell my students, Microsoft is providing F64 capacity as a part of trial for 2 months. And look at the cost. I mean, if you're using it for 24 hours for the entire month, this is the cost for you, close to 8 lakhs. And people are not even aware what is the cost, right? So the trial capacity, what Microsoft is providing, the value of it. Most of them are not aware, right? Unless you are looking at this cost estimate, right? So that's why I'm having a minimum one in my subscription to show you this capability. But still, that is very expensive. But we are not going to use it 24 hours. Maybe we can pause it. There is a feature, right? So you can always pause it when you're not using it as well. Okay. So you're going to be billed for only the usage, but you need to be aware of the capacity what Microsoft is providing as a part of trial, right? So that you won't waste even a single compute unit, right? So or the capacity for 2 months, you will gain a lot of value out of it. So that's what I wanted to stress on that. So I have a capacity enabled. So if I come back to Fabric portal, so let me take you to, I have two workspaces, as you can see here. One is like, let's say AWS Outbound Protection, right? So that's the workspace I have to show you a demo. So if I go to workspace settings, in the blade next left side, you can see a couple of aspects like one outbound networking, inbound networking. So forget about inbound for now. Let's talk about outbound networking. And if you just scroll at the bottom, I think forget about these private endpoints. And I'm going to show you how we can create it as well. Okay, there are a couple of endpoints already there. But I think here is the thing which you need to enable. I think before you enable, make sure come to license section, make sure it is attached to a Fabric capacity. And you can see that's my capacity in Central India, which is F2. Otherwise, it won't work. You won't be able to even think about this feature. So you need to be attached to a paid capacity. Okay, that's the first prerequisite, which you need to keep in mind. And the second thing is, okay, maybe I can show you the prerequisite section that will be helpful. So the workspace you want to set up must be residing on a Fabric capacity. And the second crucial thing is you must have an admin role in the workspace. You must be an admin, right? A Fabric admin. And I'm going to show you one setting which you need to enable in admin. So there are 4 prerequisites. I'm going to show you all of those. Okay, so don't worry. So let me go to admin portal. So if you click on settings under governance and administration, you can go to admin portal. And I think you no need to search because there are a lot of settings, okay, in tenant. So when you're an admin, you should be able to see all of the settings in the admin portal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search for outbound. So under advanced networking, you can see there is a option called configure workspace level outbound network rules. I think still they're saying preview, but I think it's now GA. Maybe they will soon update it. But you can see I've already enabled it. And this is one of the requirement for you to set up this particular feature to protect your workspace. Okay, make sure you enable this. Okay, so for the entire organization. Okay, so that's one of the prerequisites. So we talked about the Fabric capacity license, then enabling of this feature at the admin level under tenant settings, and then the admin role itself. Okay, and the fourth thing is you need to re-register the Microsoft.network feature for your subscription. It is a resource provider. Let me show you that real quickly. In my Azure portal, let me open my Azure subscription. Let me quickly navigate to on the left blade under settings. Click on resource providers in my subscription. I think there are a lot of things that are there. Just search for Microsoft.network. Okay, there you can see. The provider is Microsoft.network, and this is a resource provider that you need to register. And that's one of the requirement, and I think Microsoft is saying to re-register just to make sure you have it correctly set up, okay, in your particular subscription. So because that is one of the requirement that you need to satisfy to make sure you need to kind of register this resource provider at the subscription level. Okay, so that is one of the requirement. Okay, so those are the prerequisites. So you need to think about before you even plan to enable this feature at the workspace level. Make sure you meet all of these prerequisites. Okay, guys, give me a moment. 1 second. Okay, sorry, I'm back. Okay, so now we know the prerequisites well and good. Okay, so now what we will do is we talked about a couple of scenarios in the architecture, right? First thing is uh, establishing a connection to an external source, which could be ADLS Gen2 or Azure SQL database. So I'm going to show you that. And then the second scenario, maybe let's talk about the second scenario first. I think that's a bit not complicated, but that is not straightforward. So I'm going to show you the second scenario where how we can establish the cross workspace communication. Okay, so that's what we are going to see now, how we can do that. So as you can see here, I have a couple of workspaces. One is, this is my protected workspace, you can say. So let me show you that as I have shown you. So in outbound networking, so I have this enabled as you can see here. I'm saying block the outbound public access. So it is on. So which means what I can't create, what I can create, you already knew what are the items supported, right? So once you enable this, uh, I think in case if you're facing any issue at the time of enabling this, then you are missing on any of the prerequisites. So you have to be very careful in meeting all of those prerequisites. Okay. So once it is enabled, let me try to create a new item, see what is enabled and what is disabled. So as you can see here, let me come to all items. Can you see here everything is grayed out? I can't. Only few items are enabled. Like data flow gen 2 I can create. I cannot do a copy job. So it says, it can't be created due to security settings applied by the workspace admin, right? And if you see, I can create a Spark job definition under store data. I can create a lake house. And I think under prepare data, I can use data flow gen 2 and I can create an environment. I think those are the things, right? Very limited as we have seen. If I go back to the supported item types, so the one bug what I'm noting here, I think maybe I need to raise a ticket to Microsoft. I can't create a notebook at the moment. I don't know why. Okay, still, but let me search for it. Let me type in notebook. Can you see here? I think that's a bug. I think that's a bug. So we need to report it to Microsoft. I need to create a support ticket. I think I already created a support ticket because everything was disabled a couple of weeks back, and then I had to create a support ticket to Microsoft, and then they said, okay, it is in preview. Once it's GA, I think it will be resolved. But I can see now a few of the items are enabled now, which is good, like data flow gen 2. And even in this list, I can't see data flow gen 2. Maybe they need to update the documentation, or are they restricting notebooks? I don't know. So, but it is not aligning with what I'm seeing here between the documentation and what I'm seeing in the demo here, right? So it shows data flow gen 2, but I can't create a notebook. So I don't know whether it is a bug or they revised this list. Okay, that's something I need to check with Microsoft. Okay, but I think you got the idea, right? So once I protect the workspace, I can only create few items. Okay, not all. Only the supported item types I can go ahead and create it. So that's the first thing. Okay. Now let's talk about cross workspace communication. I have another workspace which is let's say WS outbound target, and let's quickly look at the workspace settings for that to make sure I haven't protected that workspace, right? So you can see here I'm not protecting it, right? So it's not enabled. So this workspace is still exposed to public internet, right? So as per our architectural diagram. Okay, so and I think the license wise it doesn't matter, right? So it is attached to still fabric capacity, that is okay. So I have this. So now what I need to do is the first requirement. I think there is a detailed documentation also. What I'm showing in demo, you can go through it under set up the workspace outbound access protection. Everything is listed out here. The two scenarios what I spoke about. So you can see here the connecting the outbound access protected workspace to another workspace within the tenant. How you can do it. So step-by-step instructions are there. You can definitely go through it. Okay, so the first thing what we need to do is maybe let me refer back the slide deck again so that it will be easy for you guys, right? So let me quickly present again. So now we are talking about the scenario where how I can establish the cross workspace communication using a private link. So there are a few steps you need to do, right? The first thing is I need to create a private link in Azure, and then pointing to the target workspace, and then I need to take the resource ID and then create the managed private endpoint so that the communication will be established, right? So that's my goal now. Okay, let me show you that exactly. So now I have two workspaces. We know the target workspace is not exposed to, exposed to public internet, and the protected workspace, as you can see here, which is here, right? So let me come back to Azure. So the first step I need to do is I need to create a private link. So what I told you about private link, it is the service itself will help you to connect your past services, right? So be it your Azure Data Lake Gen 2 or SQL database, whatever it is, it will help you to securely connect to your past services, right? So now we are talking about cross workspace communication. Still, you can use private link. Okay, so to establish that cross workspace communication within Fabric, right? So how do we do that? So if you're not able to see this, you can always search for a private link, but I'm not going to private link. I'm going to do a deployment, right? So you have to say deploy a custom template. Okay, let me click on that. So I'm going to do a custom deployment, and then you have to choose build your own template in the editor without any predefined template. I don't want that. And I think Microsoft is giving this JSON. You just copy that. Okay. So that's the first step we need to do, right? So how you can create a private link service in Azure. Okay. So let me copy this. And I think only a couple of things you need to modify before you go ahead and deploy this ARM template. So what are those couple of things? One is the tenant ID that you need to bring in. And the second thing is workspace ID. I think tenant ID, you should be able to get it from your Entra ID tenant. Okay. So it's that easy. Okay. So let me go to my Entra ID. So Entra ID is I hope most of you are aware. If you're not aware, that's the centralized access management platform, right? So for ID and access management platform. So here I can get the tenant ID, right? So I can do that. And the workspace ID, how do you get the workspace ID? Go to Fabric. And what we are trying to do now, we need to create a private link for the target workspace. So I need to get into my target workspace. And if you check the URL on top, after groups, you have this unique ID, right? That's your workspace ID. So you need to copy and keep it somewhere and then bring it here in your workspace ID. So those are the two properties that you need to define. And we are going to create a private link service for Fabric. Okay, the type you can see it's Microsoft.Fabric private link services for Fabric. It's a separate type that you can create especially for Fabric. And you can give some resource name, whatever you want, and then these two configurations. That's it. And once you define that, you need to go ahead and save it and do the deployment. And that will create a private link service uh, pointing to this specific workspace, the target workspace, and keep it ready. Okay. So I've already deployed. I'm not going to deploy now. So, but I can show you the one that I've already deployed. Okay. So let me get into my resource group. So I think in your once it is created in any specific resource group, you shouldn't be able to seeing it, right? So you have to always make sure you manage show hidden types will help you to get for some reason I think since it's related to security, so they're not exposing it. So you need to say show the hidden types. So this is the one I have already created. You can see it's of type Microsoft.Fabric private link services for Fabric, right? So once you create this, you can see it's a separate service, the private link service that's created for you. And you can see the type, the resource ID, and other information. Okay, so that's pointing to our target workspace. Okay, so now I think what I need to do is the second step is once I have the private link service ready for the target workspace, so you need to create a private endpoint in the source workspace. Okay, so let me come back to Fabric. So now we have the target. Okay, so I just came here and pulled the workspace ID to create a private link service for in Fabric, right? In Azure. So come back to your protected workspace, which is outbound protection, and then click on workspace settings, outbound networking, And here you can see there is a separate section called Manage Private Endpoints. Okay, and they are saying it's currently available for notebooks and Spark job definitions, but you can go ahead and create it. So click on create, that will open a dialog for you. Okay, so as I told you, you no need to worry about the virtual network that is being created or any what's the address range or IP range that is getting allocated, nothing. So Microsoft will take care of everything for you. That's why it's managed private endpoint. So you just need to put the resource identifier and create any specific, you give the name of your choice for the private endpoint. That's it. And you need to choose the target sub resource. So what I will do is, let me come back to, so this is the private link service I created for the cross workspace communication. Let me copy this resource ID. All you need to do is copy this resource ID, come back to Fabric, give some name like managed private endpoint, WS, let's say test cross workspace or something like that. Okay. And let me paste the resource identifier, and the resource identifier will get you everything right from subscription, resource groups, what else? The provider and the actual resource. Okay, everything will be there in the resource identifier. It will be a unique URL. Okay. So once you give that, this will be enabled. And when you click on the drop down, you should be able to see we have created this private link for what? Workspace, right? The target workspace. And you can see the target sub resource is a workspace, which we need to make that cross workspace communication. You have just choose that. I think still, since I already created this, it's saying duplicate resource string, which is okay, not a problem. Otherwise, you can go ahead and create it. That's it. Okay, so once you create it, what will happen is, maybe let me quickly delete this and show it to you. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Let me delete the existing one. Because once you create it, it will be available for provisioning, and then you need to approve, right? So as I told you. So let me try it again. Provide the resource provider. Okay. Workspace. Oh, it says still duplicate. Okay, maybe it takes some time, I believe. But that's not a problem. You can go ahead and create it. So, but what I wanted to show you was, once you create that, it won't be immediately activated. The activation will be succeeded, but or something like provisioning. Okay, so it won't be activated. So what you need to do is, you have to come back to Fabric, Azure, and then search for private link, because it needs to go through the approval process, right? So when you're trying to create any private endpoint here, it will send a notification to the actual resource, okay, the external resource, for the approval process as well. And you need to approve there, then it will be connected. Okay, so if I come back here, so let me say private link. So private link services. And here you can see under the network foundation, pending connections. I think here you will get the request. Okay, so when you're trying to create, maybe I think for the other scenario I can show you. Okay, but I think it's probably taking a time. Okay, it's gone. Maybe let me quickly create and show it to you. Then we can see it in action, right? So it's provider, workspace, go ahead and create it. Can you see here? I think you can still see the resource ID that we are connecting to, and then the activation state is in provisioning state, and the approval is not yet done. So now if I can come back to my network foundation and refresh, is it not there yet? Okay. Private link, pending connections. Can you see there? We got it. Okay, so the resource, as you remember, it's the Fabric resource outbound, if you remember, right? So that's the private link service we created, Fabric resource res outbound. The resource name is there, and the private endpoint we created in Fabric is there, and the state is pending. So all I need to do is come to the pending connection section, and then approve it. Okay, so just approve it. Yeah, I think it takes a moment for it to approve, probably, and then you should be able to see the connection established between those two workspaces. Yeah, we are good to go. So now it is approved, and you should be able to come and refresh, and maybe it takes a bit of time to show the status here, and then it will say approved. Okay. So now what we have done, we have established the cross workspace communication, right? So between the protected workspace to the target workspace. Now what I can do, I can create a shortcut pulling data from the other workspace, or if you want to bring the lake house from that workspace, you can do it. And then attach the lake houses and then write data to that lake house, whatever you wanted to do, but still within the supported item types, you have to do it. Okay. So that's the second scenario, the cross workspace communication that you can establish. Okay. So maybe if you keep refreshing, or maybe a moment later, we can see that. And I think okay, give me a moment. Let me drink some water. Okay, let's talk about the quickly talk about the first scenario, right? So where we talked about the connection between the workspace to the external resources, past services like SQL or ADLS Gen2. So to quickly demonstrate that, okay, let me come back to my Azure portal. Under this resource, okay, so I have a, okay, let me take up. Okay, I have a staging storage account. Okay, so I think it's not um, Gen 2 enabled, because once you have the hierarchical namespace enabled, then it will be a data lake Gen 2. Now I think it's a blob storage account. Okay, so of general purpose V2. Okay, so I have this storage account. Now the requirement is I need to connect my workspace to this storage account. How do I do that? I mean, the protected workspace needs to be securely accessing the storage account. How do I do that? That's the first scenario we talked about, right? So to do that, again, you need to create a private endpoint. This time, I don't want to create any private link service. Why? Uh, because the service is already within the cloud in Azure, right? So all you need to do is you need to get the resource ID for that past servers and then establish the connection by creating a private endpoint. But still, it goes through that approval process again. So that's what I'm going to show you. So for this storage account, if you just scroll up quickly, click on JSON view. So you get the resource ID. Just copy that. Okay, so it will have everything. And then come back to Fabric. And let's say this time manage private endpoint. Let's say storage connection, right? Storage con. And then I'm pasting the resource identifier that has my storage account complete resource identification. And once you click on the target sub resource, this time it won't be a workspace, right? Because that's a cross workspace communication. We created a private link service pointing to the target workspace. But here it is different. We are talking about establishing the connection from a secured workspace to a external source like the storage account or Azure SQL database. So once you put on the resource identifier, it will automatically populate this target sub resource, and it will ask because there are a lot of types that you can connect to, right, in a storage account. It could be data lake Gen 2 or blob storage or file storage or whatever it is. But in my case, it's blob storage. We can go ahead and create it. So it is already created, but let me try to create it for you. So as you can see here, I think this will take a bit of time. You may think why it is still in provisioning state. We already approved. Maybe it will take a bit of time, but we have already approved. Okay, so it will be done. So here you can see the activation is succeeded. Okay, so I'm saying the story. Oh, sorry, I think it is succeeded. It says pending. Okay, maybe it will be updated. This is the one we created for cross workspace communication. And this is the one we created just now for the storage connection. It says it's in provisioning state. So how do I approve this? Because now I created a private endpoint, and now I need to approve the connection so that I can securely connect from my workspace to the storage account. So come back to the storage account. On the left plate, minimize under security and networking, come to networking. Minimize this. And you can see there is a separate section called private endpoints. Click on that. And there you can see, I already created one I told you, right? So which I approved. Now the one which we created now is here, which is in pending state. Okay, so you can see the connection name and all. So since I said it's a managed private endpoint, you don't have any control over the connection name and all. Microsoft is taking care of everything in the backend. Okay, so all you need to do is create it, come to the actual resource and then approve it, then you're connected. Okay, so all you have to do is just approve this request, approve this connection, private endpoint connection, and we are good to go. So you can always check that connection, but I think, yeah, right now I don't have required access. Yeah, since it's a managed private endpoint, I don't think you will be able to access, but all you have to do is just approve that private endpoint. Okay, so and then come back here. And I think in few minutes, probably, can you see here? Now it's reflecting the one which we created for cross workspace communication is now succeeded and approved. And I think maybe in few minutes for the external storage connection also, you should see the activation is succeeded and it's approved. Okay. And that's how you can establish connection from your protected workspace to the approved destinations, right? So be it the cross workspace communication or be it to any external PaaS service like the Azure SQL database or ADLS Gen2. Okay, so those are the two things that you need to keep in mind. Okay, so I think, yeah, so and it also allows Git integration, but that's for later. But the key thing which you need to understand here is how do you establish that connection that we have seen, right? So the couple of scenarios we spoke about. I think this is probably both of them are like required in enterprise scenario, right? So you definitely probably there is a need to connect to storage account to bring the data. There is a need to connect to another workspace to, let's say, create shortcut or bring in that lake house and then do some data transformation in the protected workspace. Possible, right? So that's why I'm showing you this in action. This will help you in case if you're planning to set this up. Okay, so yeah. So and then I think then you're good to go, right? So you can let's say you have a lake house created in the protected workspace, let's say, right? Or let's say you have created a notebook, and then if you're trying to access the lake house in the another workspace that we have established the connection. So that way you can securely connect to other workspaces and other resources that we have already approved, and the connection is completely in the Microsoft backend backbone network. Okay. So I think those are the things I wanted to cover, and I think you can read a lot about other scenarios and other information. But what we have seen in the demo is completely illustrated, or the complete documentation is here, so you can just go through it. Probably if you want to read more about it. Okay. So as you can see here, that's how we have established the connection. Um, so coming back. Yeah, so I think the documentation link for reference, we will share it. Okay, so you can read a lot about it. Um, yeah, so that's, I think in theory, that's it. We are done with the session. So yeah, we can probably take up questions or we can go through quiz. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Sheikh Mohammed. Team, do you have anyone have any questions? Please post your questions in the chat box or Q&A so the speaker can answer your questions. I think as of now, there are no one is asking any questions.
So it means like it's crystal clear for sure.
Yeah, hello, Sheikh. Thanks for the session, and I joined very lately, but I have few questions. For example, my project is an ongoing project which is done in Synapse, and in that one we are using ADLS for storage. But in case if we are migrating to Fabric, in that case we can able to still access to ADLS, and we are using bronze and silver layer for this one. So in that
Okay.
case, the data will be, I mean, it will be pulled from each time and loaded in bronze and silver. That will be some. Is it possible to reduce the storage cost in terms of when coming to Fabric?
See, let me understand your question first here. So what you're saying is you already have existing PaaS servers, which is Data Lake Gen2, right, in Azure.
Yeah.
You have your data there, right? So that's a PaaS service. And I think
Yeah.
when you're moving to Fabric, as I mentioned here, so maybe there could be a requirement for you to connect to your storage account ADLS Gen2 from Workspace, and probably you might have protect your workspace, as I said, right? So in that case, the costing for the I think the storage account or ADLS Gen2 will still be the same, right? So we are not migrating the storage account here. So the storage account is still going to be there in Azure, and it's a separate PaaS service, right? So only probably the egress ingress they talk about, right? The data transmission cost, or they call it as egress, when you're trying to pull the data from your ADLS Gen2 into your workspace or into your lake house and then keep it in your bronze layer and then do further transformation. I think, yeah, so that's it won't be a major difference, I would say, but still the service is going to be there. Okay, you're not migrating your storage account, right? So you're bringing your data into one lake from your ADLS Gen 2, and for that you're trying to establish the connection from your workspace to the ADLS Gen 2, right? So what's your question? Whether your question is around the costing for ADLS Gen 2 or what exactly is your question?
Actually, there is one term in Fabric like a mirroring. I'm not sure of what is mirroring because I lately joined. So in that
Yeah.
case, mirroring is nothing but replicating the data, or in the that means we can replicate the data that is which is in bronze, and we can replicate the data by mirroring in silver. Can we do the transformation there? From that point of view, I have asked
See,
that question.
mirroring is it's a different topic, you know, because we can replicate the data, but it brings a copy of data from your the source. Okay.
Mhm.
So, but if you talk about shortcut, that's a different thing, right? So, but mirroring, you can definitely do it for Azure SQL database to bring your data, but I'm not sure if the capability is available for your data lake Gen 2. Okay, for Azure SQL database, I've already explored it. So you can copy or replicate your data in near real time, so that you don't need to worry about the copying of data. So you don't need complex ETLs and all, right? And then you can do the required transformation. But still, I'm struggling to understand your question. So what's your question? Are you talking about your project architecture here? Because please keep the questions around the the
Yeah.
workspace protection and how we can connect to the storage account, right? So mirroring, it's own topic by itself. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Sheikh. Yeah.
Sure,
Thank
but that's definitely possible. You can, see, the costing won't be a major difference, as I told you, if you're thinking about costing. But there are many ways you can do it, right? So, speaking about the protected workspace, you have opportunities to create a secure connection to your ADLS Gen 2 and then bring your data in, right? So that is
you.
definitely possible, even if you're migrating to Fabric.
Okay, then. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So from moving from one from dev to UAT to production, is it something like as we do like Azure DevOps? Is it the same in Fabric, right?
Yeah, see, in Fabric, we do have deployment pipelines. Okay, so when you are working on any project, you have deployment pipelines to create different stages and then attach different workspaces to that stages, so that you can, well, let's say development, you have a different workspace, and then once you're done with your work, you can push it. So everything is there. It's out of the box in Fabric for you to have a deployment pipeline. Okay, so and you're talking about source control here, right? For source control also, you have opportunities to connect to Azure DevOps. Okay, so to secure or maintain the versions of your code as well. So everything is out of the box inside Fabric. When it comes to source control, or when it comes to the managing of the deployments, right? So from dev to UAT to production, you have deployment pipelines feature as well there, which you can utilize in Fabric.
Okay, and also actually we are working on this IoT sensor data. So in that case, we are using Azure Data Explorer for dashboarding purpose. Will Power BI do the same as like Azure Data Explorer, or can we connect Azure Data Explorer to the Fabric itself to get the expected result?
I see. I cannot answer this at the moment because I haven't explored Azure Data Explorer, whether it can connect or not. But I think there should be opportunities. Maybe we can check and come back to you.
Okay, okay. Thanks, Jake. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for the
Thank you.
beautiful session.
No problem. Yeah. Welcome.
Team, anyone have any questions? Can you ask? Speaker will answer your questions. Meantime, Sheikh Mohammed, can we go for the quiz for a couple of minutes so that the team, anyone having questions, they can post or they can ask directly in the team chat?
Yeah,
Okay.
sure, Mogadesh, sure. We can.
Yeah. Teams, please ready. I am sharing my screen. So I will share a QR code. You please scan it and answer those questions. Those winners will get a hoodie from our NDAC community. Is my screen visible? Sheikh, can you confirm?
Yes, Mugadeshwar. It is.
Team, everyone please scan their QR code. Who are joining in by phone, they please click the link and fill your details and please answer those questions, whatever they're in that form. So winner will get a hoodie on them. If anyone facing login issue or scanning or that form link, I can share in the chat box. Please let me know.
And I think Shubham Mugadeshwar and Shubham is asking, can you please give one use case of this? I think there are n number of use cases, Shubham. So I think, see, if you take any enterprise project, why wouldn't they protect their workspace? That's the first requirement, I believe, right? So, and then they have to think about, I think that should be the first in the design, I would say, with respect to security. And they have to make sure they protect and then think about how they can access their outside sources, be it Azure PaaS services like SQL database. Probably take any project, right? Any industry, any use cases. I think definitely, irrespective of domains, I think the workspace protection is a must, I would say, right? So they would want to block the public internet access. So I think there are a number of use cases. You can take anything of your own in any industry, I would say. And I think those two scenarios both applies, these two scenarios we talked about definitely applies in any enterprise setting. I think the cross workspace communication, I think definitely, you can think of a number of use cases with cross workspace communication, I told you, right? So from your protected workspace, you might want to pull the lakehouse from another workspace that is exposed to probably public internet, right? So that you can reuse that or write to that lakehouse from the target workspace, right? That's residing within the target workspace. How do you connect to that lakehouse that's residing in another workspace, in your protected workspace? So those are all, I think, the use cases that you can think of, Shubham. Yeah.
Anyone have questions? Can you ask and post it in the chat box? We'll wait for 2 minutes, Sheikh, so that after that we can wind down the session.
Yeah, no problem. I think, yeah.
Team, whoever scan this scanner code, please answer your questions. The winner, on behalf of NDAC community, we will contact you by the given phone number and mail address. So the winner will get a hoodie. So anyone don't have any questions, we will wait for 2 more minutes for answering those questions. Also join our community and follow our channel so you can get the latest updates from our community, what are the upcoming webinars from the NDAC community. So you can follow us from LinkedIn and join Teams and Meetup also. We will post frequent job updates and latest webinars. Thank you all. Thank you for attending the session. Thank you, Sheikh, for your valuable time in the weekend.
Yeah. No problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hope
So
the session is helpful to everyone. Thanks, guys, for taking time during weekends, because it takes a lot of commitment to join during weekends.
yeah, we are
So
eagerly waiting
enjoy.
for much more
Yeah,
sessions
yeah.
from you on coming
Yeah,
days.
probably, family members are like, disturbing. So Saturday evening is the right time for us to, yeah, but I think it takes a lot of commitment to join this session. So uh, thanks to all the joinees. Yeah, hope the session is useful. Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Bye.
Great session.
Thank
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Shiv.
Thank you. Mahudeshwaran, I think the recording can be stopped and yeah, I guess it's good, right?